Remember when every church potluck featured at least 3 gelatin salads suspended with vegetables? And casseroles weren't ironic? The American dinner table once looked completely different from what we see today. These dishes weren't just food. They were social currency, markers of domestic skill, and edible time capsules of 20th century life. Let's rediscover what made them essential, why they disappeared, and what they reveal about the American experience. Scalloped potatoes with ham. The ultimate one-dish wonder that turned Sunday's leftover ham into Monday's triumph. Scalloped potatoes with ham ruled American kitchens from the 1940s through the 1970s. After World War II ended, casserole dishes became symbols of abundance and domestic prowess. Housewives would slice potatoes paper-thin, layer them with chunks of leftover ham, and smother everything in a rich cream sauce thickened with flour and butter. The dish baked slowly in a moderate oven until the potatoes turned fork tender and the top formed a golden, bubbling crust. Each layer absorbed the salty, smoky essence of the ham, while the cream sauce melded everything into a cohesive, rib-sticking masterpiece. This wasn't just efficient cooking. It was economic genius. One ham bone could flavor an entire week's worth of meals, and the scalloped potato casserole stretched it even further. At church suppers and family reunions, a properly executed scalloped potato dish earned serious respect. Today's obsession with fresh, light sides has left this hearty classic behind, replaced by roasted vegetables and quinoa salads that would baffle any 1950s homemaker. 7-layer salad. Before meal prep became an Instagram trend, there was 7-layer salad, the original make-ahead masterpiece that showcased ingredients through clear glass. This architectural wonder emerged in the 1950s, when Pyrex bowls and visibility became essential to presentation. The construction followed a strict order. Crisp iceberg lettuce formed the foundation, followed by layers of chopped celery, hard-boiled eggs, frozen peas that thawed in the bowl, shredded cheddar cheese, crumbled bacon, and a crowning layer of mayonnaise mixed with sugar that sealed everything like edible mortar. The genius lived in the timing. Assembled the night before, the layers stayed distinct yet began mingling, creating pockets of flavor that revealed themselves with each serving. The mayonnaise blanket prevented oxidation, keeping the lettuce crisp and the colors bright. At potlucks, hostesses competed to create the most perfect layers, the most even distribution, the most impressive cross-section when that first spoon broke through. This salad represented post-war optimism and convenience culture, when shelf-stable ingredients and refrigeration transformed American cooking. Modern food sensibilities reject the mayonnaise seal and the sweetness, favoring vinaigrettes and fresh presentations that would wilt before reaching the table. Macaroni and tomatoes. Long before mac and cheese became a boxed commodity, Depression-era families stretched their pasta with garden tomatoes in this humble, soul-satisfying dish. Born from necessity in the 1930s, when meat was luxury and cheese was precious, macaroni and tomatoes kept families fed on pennies. Cooks would boil elbow macaroni until tender, then stir in home-canned tomatoes, juice and all, along with a spoonful of bacon grease for richness, salt, pepper, and sometimes a pinch of sugar to cut the acidity. The dish simmered together until the macaroni absorbed the bright red tomato liquid, creating a comforting, tomatoey pasta that stretched to feed whoever showed up at dinner time. In rural communities, this dish appeared weekly during tomato season, using up the bushels that ripened faster than families could eat them fresh. Some cooks added onions fried in butter. Others included bell peppers from the garden. But the core remained unchanged. Pasta and tomatoes united in economical harmony. The dish carried no pretension, demanded no special ingredients, and asked nothing of the cook beyond stirring occasionally. Today's pasta culture worships al dente texture and imported Italian ingredients, leaving this soft, sauce-heavy comfort food relegated to fading handwritten recipe cards. Corn pudding. Corn pudding transformed summer's sweetest vegetable into a custardy side dish that straddled the line between savory and dessert. This Southern church supper staple dated back to colonial times, but reached peak popularity in mid-century America, when convenience met tradition. Fresh corn kernels were scraped from the cob with a knife, releasing the sweet milk trapped inside each kernel. These went into a mixture of beaten eggs, cream, or evaporated milk, butter, a bit of sugar, flour for structure, and salt and pepper for balance. The whole thing baked slowly in a buttered casserole dish until a knife inserted in the center came out clean and the top turned golden brown with crispy edges. The texture fell somewhere between soufflé and pudding, custardy, rich, and almost impossibly sweet from the corn's natural sugars. At Thanksgiving tables across the South, corn pudding held its own against stuffing and sweet potato casserole, offering a unique sweetness that complemented savory turkey and ham. The dish required fresh corn at its peak, which limited it to late summer and early fall. Modern preference for lighter, less rich vegetables and the dominance of Mexican-style street corn have pushed this custardy creation off most menus entirely. Broccoli rice casserole. The ultimate 1970s bridge between health food trends and comfort food traditions, broccoli rice casserole appeared at every potluck, armed with Campbell's cream of mushroom soup and processed cheese. This was when America first discovered broccoli wasn't just garnish, and convenience products promised liberation from kitchen drudgery. The recipe demanded cooked white rice, frozen broccoli florets, condensed cream of mushroom soup straight from the can, a brick of Velveeta cheese cubed into submission, and sometimes a can of water chestnuts for crunch. Everything got stirred together in a buttered casserole dish, topped with crushed Ritz crackers, mixed with melted butter, and baked until bubbling and golden. The result was a creamy, cheesy, crunchy monument to processed food innovation. The Velveeta melted into smooth, glossy perfection, while the condensed soup provided salty, umami depth. The broccoli softened but retained enough structure to feel virtuous, and those Ritz crackers added textural contrast. This casserole let mothers claim they served vegetables while delivering the comfort of cheese and carbs. Today's food culture rejects both the processed ingredients and the heavy casserole format, favoring roasted broccoli with olive oil and sea salt that our grandmothers would have considered tragically undercooked. 3-bean salad. No picnic cooler was complete without this tangy, vinegar-soaked bean medley that could survive summer heat without refrigeration. 3-bean salad emerged in the 1940s, when canned vegetables represented modernity, and housewives sought recipes that traveled well. The formula was sacred. 1 can each of green beans, yellow wax beans, and kidney beans, drained and combined with sliced onions and bell peppers. The dressing balanced vinegar, sugar, and oil in proportions that varied by family recipe, creating a sweet sour brine that penetrated every bean. This mixture sat in the refrigerator overnight or longer, developing flavor and softening the raw onion's bite. The result was simultaneously crunchy and tender, sweet and sour, substantial and refreshing. At backyard barbecues and church picnics, 3-bean salad sat safely on outdoor tables for hours, its vinegar content acting as natural preservation. The beans provided protein and fiber without requiring refrigeration like mayonnaise-based salads, making it practical for gatherings in the pre-air conditioning era. The dish represented American innovation, taking canned goods and creating something that felt homemade and special. Modern palates reject the extreme sweetness and the mushy texture of over-marinated canned beans, preferring fresh vegetables and lighter vinaigrettes that would spoil under July sun. Copper penny salad. This vibrant orange disc parade earned its name from the perfectly round carrot slices that resembled shiny pennies, floating in sweet, tangy marinade. Created in the 1960s, when colorful food was considered sophisticated, copper penny salad brought excitement to the humble carrot. Carrots were peeled and sliced into uniform coins, boiled until just tender, then marinated overnight in a mixture of tomato soup, vinegar, sugar, vegetable oil, mustard, and Worcestershire sauce. Rings of raw onion and green pepper joined the party, adding sharpness and color contrast. The marinade transformed the carrots from garden vegetable to conversation piece, infusing them with complex sweet, sour, and savory notes. The tomato soup provided body and a subtle ketchup-like sweetness that made the dish accessible to children while satisfying adults. After its overnight soak, the salad could last a week in the refrigerator, improving with time as flavors deepened. Hostesses served it in their best cut glass bowls, the orange coins gleaming through the translucent marinade. This was food as visual art, practical storage, and unique flavor all wrapped together. Contemporary food culture views boiled carrots as punishment and tomato soup as sauce base, not salad dressing, leaving copper pennies forgotten except in vintage community cookbooks. Potato salad with pickle juice. Before artisanal vinegars and European imports, American cooks discovered that pickle juice was liquid gold for potato salad. This wasn't laziness, it was genius. After finishing a jar of dill pickles, thrifty housewives saved the brine, recognizing that the vinegar, dill, garlic, and spices had created something greater than the sum of its parts. Boiled potatoes, cubed while still warm, got doused with pickle juice that soaked into every crevice, seasoning from within. Once cooled, the potatoes were mixed with mayonnaise, chopped hard-boiled eggs, diced celery for crunch, minced onion, and chopped pickles themselves. The pickle juice did double duty, flavoring and helping the mayonnaise stretch further, creating a looser, tangier potato salad than the thick, mayo-heavy versions. The result was bright, sharp, and addictively tangy, with layers of pickle flavor throughout. At summer gatherings, this potato salad stood out from the competition, its distinct dill-forward taste, cutting through rich barbecue and fried chicken. The recipe embodied Depression-era resourcefulness that persisted through the prosperous post-war years. Modern potato salad trends favor herb-forward vinaigrettes or bacon additions, while pickle juice gets poured down drains by cooks who don't recognize its transformative power. Carrot raisin salad. The original health food store lunch counter special. Carrot raisin salad, mixed shredded carrots with plump raisins in a creamy sweet dressing that made vegetables feel like dessert. This salad gained traction in the 1960s, when raw vegetables entered mainstream American consciousness beyond just lettuce. Carrots were shredded on a box grater until they formed delicate orange threads, then tossed with raisins that had been soaked briefly in water to plump them up. The dressing combined mayonnaise, sugar, a splash of lemon juice, and sometimes pineapple juice for tropical sweetness. Some versions added chopped apples, walnuts, or shredded coconut, creating a carnival of textures and sweetness levels. The carrots provided crunch and earthiness, while the raisins delivered concentrated sweetness and chewiness. The mayo-based dressing coated everything in rich creaminess that mellowed the raw carrot's sharp edge. This salad appeared at deli counters nationwide, at potlucks, and packed in school lunches, representing healthy eating in an era when healthy meant including vegetables, regardless of how much sugar accompanied them. The dish satisfied both the vegetable requirement and the American sweet tooth simultaneously. Today's preference for savory vegetables and skepticism toward mayonnaise-heavy preparations has relegated this sweet salad to nostalgia territory. Sweet and sour red cabbage. German immigrant communities brought this tangy sweet braised cabbage that turned the humble vegetable into something worthy of celebration. Sweet and sour red cabbage became an American standard through Pennsylvania Dutch influence, appearing at holiday tables alongside pork and potatoes. A head of red cabbage was shredded thin, then cooked slowly with sliced apples, chopped onions, vinegar, sugar, bacon fat, and warm spices like cloves and cinnamon. The mixture simmered for hours until the cabbage wilted into tender, purple-red ribbons, and the apples dissolved into the sauce, creating a complex sweet, sour, savory flavor profile. The vinegar preserved the cabbage's vibrant color while tenderizing the tough leaves, and the sugar balanced the acidity into harmony. Some cooks added red wine or currant jelly for extra depth and richness. Hot German potato salad. Forget mayonnaise. Hot German potato salad brought bacon, vinegar, and warmth to the potato salad category, creating something entirely different from its cold, creamy cousin. German immigrants established this dish in American foodways, particularly in the Midwest where German communities thrived. The process started with bacon, rendered in a skillet until crispy, then removed to drain. Onions cooked in the bacon fat until softened and sweet, followed by a mixture of vinegar, sugar, mustard, salt, and pepper that came to a boil, creating a warm, tangy dressing. Boiled potatoes, sliced while still warm, went directly into this dressing, along with the reserved bacon crumbled on top. The hot potatoes absorbed the dressing immediately, soaking up bacon fat and vinegar in equal measure. Fresh parsley added green flecks and slight bitterness to balance the richness. This salad was served warm or at room temperature, never cold, making it perfect for winter gatherings and holiday meals. The texture was lighter than mayo-based versions, the flavor more complex with sweet, sour, smoky notes playing together. At church suppers and family reunions, hot German potato salad represented old country heritage and culinary skill. Contemporary trends favor cold potato salads or roasted potato preparations, leaving this warm, bacon fat-soaked tradition largely forgotten outside German-American communities. Cauliflower au gratin. Before cauliflower became pizza crust and rice substitute, it was swimming in cheese sauce and breadcrumbs as cauliflower au gratin. This dish elevated the often dismissed vegetable into something worthy of holiday tables. A head of cauliflower was broken into florets and boiled until just tender, then arranged in a buttered baking dish. The magic happened in the cheese sauce, a classic bechamel made with butter, flour, and milk, enriched with sharp cheddar cheese that melted into golden perfection. This sauce was poured over the cauliflower, coating every crevice, then topped with buttered breadcrumbs that would crisp and brown in the oven. The finished dish emerged bubbling, with crispy golden topping, giving way to creamy cheese sauce and tender cauliflower beneath. Each bite delivered multiple textures and the satisfying combination of mild vegetable and assertive cheese. This was how mothers convinced children to eat vegetables, by drowning them in dairy. The dish appeared regularly at Sunday dinners and holiday spreads, representing vegetable sophistication beyond plain boiled greens. The preparation took time and attention, marking it as special occasion food. Modern cauliflower treatments focus on roasting or raw preparations that highlight the vegetable itself, rejecting the heavy cheese sauce that made it palatable to previous generations. Congealed lime salad. The most polarizing dish in American potluck history, congealed lime salad suspended cottage cheese, pineapple, and sometimes vegetables in quivering lime jello. This represented peak 1950s food innovation, when gelatin was considered elegant and scientific. A package of lime jello dissolved in hot water, then cooled slightly before folding in cottage cheese, crushed pineapple with its juice, mayonnaise, and sometimes chopped nuts or vegetables. The mixture poured into a mold, often a decorative ring or bundt shape, and chilled overnight until firm. When unmolded onto a lettuce-lined platter, the salad stood proud and wobbly, glistening green in artificial light. The flavor combination confused modern palates. Sweet lime gelatin, tangy cottage cheese, and tropical pineapple created something neither fully dessert nor properly salad. But in its era, this represented sophistication and modern homemaking. The gelatin allowed foods to be shaped, stacked, and presented in ways impossible before. At ladies' luncheons and bridge club gatherings, congealed salads demonstrated domestic prowess and creativity. The texture was simultaneously firm and jiggly, creamy from the cottage cheese, yet bouncy from the gelatin. Today's food culture has firmly rejected savory gelatin in almost all forms, finding the texture off-putting and the sweet-savory combinations baffling. Baked pineapple casserole. Southern tradition met tropical fruit in this controversial side dish that divided dinner tables into devoted fans and horrified skeptics. Baked pineapple casserole occupied the strange space between side dish and dessert, appearing at holiday tables alongside turkey and ham. Canned pineapple chunks were drained and mixed with sugar, flour, shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and sometimes Ritz crackers, then baked until bubbly and golden. The cheese melted into the pineapple, creating a sweet-savory combination that seemed wrong until the first bite revealed surprising harmony. Some versions topped the mixture with more crushed crackers, mixed with melted butter, adding crunch to the soft, fruit-filled interior. The casserole emerged from the oven hot and bubbling, the cheese stretching between servings. The pineapple softened and caramelized at the edges. This dish represented Southern innovation and willingness to combine unexpected ingredients. The sweet pineapple cut through rich holiday foods, while the cheese kept it firmly in savory territory. At church suppers, this casserole sparked conversations and conversions. People who claimed to hate it found themselves returning for seconds. Modern sensibilities struggle with the cheese and fruit combination, preferring clearer boundaries between sweet and savory courses, leaving this quirky casserole largely confined to traditional Southern tables. Molded cranberry salad. Thanksgiving's wobbly centerpiece, molded cranberry salad suspended whole cranberries, pecans, and crushed pineapple and cherry, or cranberry jello, shaped into festive forms. This was holiday elegance defined by the 1960s aesthetic. Fresh or canned cranberries mixed with sugar, dissolved in hot water with cherry jello, then cooled before adding crushed pineapple, chopped pecans, and sometimes celery for crunch. The mixture poured into a decorative mold and chilled overnight, then unmolded onto lettuce just before serving, revealing its jewel-like interior, studded with red cranberries and nut pieces. The flavor balanced tart cranberries, sweet gelatin, tropical pineapple, and earthy pecans into something festive and distinctly American. The molded presentation elevated it beyond simple cranberry sauce, making it worthy of the fancy china and special occasions. At Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners, the molded cranberry salad commanded its own serving plate, often garnished elaborately with lettuce leaves and mayonnaise dollops. The texture provided contrast to soft turkey and stuffing, offering bouncy firmness and occasional nut crunch. This represented an era when presentation mattered as much as flavor, when shaped food suggested sophistication. Contemporary Thanksgiving tables favor simple cranberry sauce or fresh cranberry relish, finding gelatin-based preparations dated and the sweetness excessive. Cucumber and onion salad. The original palate cleanser, cucumber and onion salad marinated paper-thin vegetables in vinegar and sugar, creating refreshing crunch that cut through heavy summer meals. This simple preparation appeared at nearly every backyard barbecue and fish fry from the 1940s through the 1980s. Cucumbers were sliced impossibly thin, using a mandolin or sharp knife, along with sweet onions that formed delicate rings. These went into a bowl with a dressing of white vinegar, sugar, salt, and sometimes sour cream or mayonnaise for richness. The mixture sat in the refrigerator for at least an hour, allowing the cucumbers to release water and the onions to mellow, while both absorbed the sweet sour dressing. The result was crisp, tangy, refreshing, and slightly sweet, a perfect counterpoint to fried chicken, grilled meats, or fish. The cucumbers retained their crunch despite the marinade, while the onions lost their harsh bite, becoming sweet and tangy. At church picnics and family reunions, this salad represented simplicity done well. Just a few ingredients combined perfectly. The vinegar dressing meant it could sit out safely in summer heat, unlike mayonnaise-based salads. Modern cucumber salads typically feature Asian-inspired sesame dressings or Mediterranean preparations with olive oil and herbs, leaving this sweet-sour American classic largely forgotten despite its perfect simplicity. Pea and cheese salad. This unlikely combination of frozen peas, cheddar cheese cubes, and mayonnaise represented mid-century America's love affair with cold, creamy salads. Pea and cheese salad emerged when frozen vegetables promised year-round convenience and processed cheese became kitchen staple. Frozen peas, thawed but uncooked, mixed with sharp cheddar cheese cut into small cubes, chopped celery for crunch, diced onion for bite, and sometimes crumbled bacon for smoky richness. Mayonnaise bound everything together, creating a creamy coating that clung to each pea and cheese cube. Some versions added hard-boiled eggs or substituted peanuts for extra protein and texture. The salad chilled for several hours before serving, allowing flavors to meld while maintaining the distinct pop of each pea and the firm texture of cheese cubes. The combination seemed odd. Raw, frozen peas had a starchy, slightly sweet quality that contrasted with sharp cheese and rich mayonnaise. But this salad appeared regularly at potlucks and buffets, representing easy preparation and crowd-pleasing appeal. The peas provided color and vegetable virtue, while the cheese and mayo delivered satisfaction. Modern food culture prefers fresh or properly cooked vegetables and lighter dressings, finding raw, frozen peas unappetizing and the mayonnaise excessive, leaving this quirky salad mostly forgotten. Succotash. Native American in origin but Americanized in execution, Succotash combined lima beans and corn into a buttery side dish that appeared at Thanksgiving tables as nod to colonial heritage. The dish dated back to indigenous peoples who planted corn and beans together, but 20th-century versions transformed it into something more indulgent. Fresh or frozen lima beans and corn kernels were cooked together in butter or bacon fat, seasoned simply with salt and pepper, and sometimes enriched with cream. The butter melted into every bean and kernel, creating a rich, satisfying vegetable medley. Some versions added bell peppers or tomatoes for color and acidity. The combination worked because the starchy lima beans and sweet corn balanced each other while the fat carried their flavors. At Thanksgiving dinners, Succotash represented American heritage and agricultural abundance, reminding diners of the country's colonial roots. The dish was simple, honest and filling, vegetable sides that didn't pretend to be more than they were. But lima beans fell from favor as Americans became more adventurous with vegetables, and corn found more exciting preparations. The buttery simplicity that once felt satisfying now seems plain compared to roasted vegetable medleys and exotic preparations. Succotash survives mainly in historical reenactments and Thanksgiving traditionalist tables. Pinto beans with ham hock. Walk into any rural kitchen from the 1920s through the 1960s, and you'd smell pinto beans simmering before you even opened the door. Across Appalachia and the rural South, farmers grew their own beans, dried them in burlap sacks, and stored them through brutal winters. When hog killing time came in late fall, the ham hocks became the secret weapon for transforming dried beans into something transcendent. You'd soak dried pintos overnight, then simmer them with a smoked ham hock for 4 to 6 hours on a wood stove. That ham hock would slowly surrender its smoky, salty, fatty essence, turning plain beans rich and meaty. The collagen would break down, creating a thick, silky texture that coated every bean. This was poor folk food that fed entire families for days, stretching across dinner, next day's lunch, and even breakfast if you fried the beans in lard. Collard greens with pot liquor. In the rural South, collard greens weren't a side dish. They were a nutritional powerhouse that grew when everything else died and could feed families through the darkest winter months. From the Carolinas through Georgia and Mississippi, collards represented African-American culinary genius meeting Southern agricultural reality. Country families planted collards in late summer knowing they'd still be harvesting when snow covered the ground. You'd harvest massive leaves, wash them obsessively, slice them into thick ribbons, then simmer them with smoked ham hock or fatback for 2 to 4 hours. The greens would break down, absorbing the smoky, salty, fatty essence of the pork. The cooking liquid, the pot liquor, would turn jade green and become more valuable than the greens themselves. This vitamin-rich broth could revive the sick and provide nutrition when food was scarce. Salisbury steak with brown gravy. Long before anyone knew what molecular gastronomy was, grandmothers were transforming humble ground beef into something that looked and tasted like restaurant fare. Salisbury steak was their answer to making dinner feel special on a Tuesday night. Ground beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, egg, and seasonings, then shaped into oval patties that resembled real steaks. The real magic happened in the gravy, a rich, brown sauce made from pan drippings that could make cardboard taste good. This dish represented the American dream on a plate, taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary. The steaks were pan-fried until golden, then simmered in that gorgeous gravy, alongside mushrooms and onions. Served over mashed potatoes or egg noodles, it was comfort food that fooled nobody but satisfied everyone. Your grandmother understood that sometimes the best meals came from the heart, not the wallet. And Salisbury steak was proof that simple ingredients could create lasting memories. Pork chops and sauerkraut. When your grandmother wanted to create something that tasted like it came from the old country, she'd make pork chops and sauerkraut, a dish that was both hearty and flavorful. Thick-cut pork chops would be browned until golden, then nestled into a bed of sauerkraut that had been seasoned with caraway seeds and sometimes a touch of brown sugar to balance the tartness. The whole thing would be baked slowly until the meat was tender and the sauerkraut had absorbed all those wonderful flavors. This was comfort food with a German twist, a meal that could warm you up on the coldest winter nights. The sauerkraut would become sweet and mellow during the long cooking process, while the pork chops stayed juicy and flavorful. Your grandmother might add sliced apples or onions for extra sweetness, or serve it with mashed potatoes and rye bread. This dish proved that simple ingredients from different cultures could come together to create something uniquely American. Sow belly and black-eyed peas. In the rural South, sow belly, unsmoked, uncured pork belly, represented the most economical cut of the pig. And paired with black-eyed peas, it sustained sharecroppers and tenant farmers through hard times. Black-eyed peas came to America with enslaved Africans, proving hardy enough to grow in the poorest soil. Sow belly was pure pork fat, with maybe a thin streak of meat, salted heavily for preservation. You'd cut the sow belly into chunks and render it slowly in a heavy pot. Add soaked black-eyed peas, cover with water, and simmer for 2 to 3 hours. The peas would absorb the pork fat, turning creamy inside while holding their shape. This was New Year's Day food across the South, eaten for luck and prosperity. But for many families, it was Tuesday night dinner. The peas represented coins, and eating them meant financial security in the coming year. Cornmeal mush. Before oatmeal became the breakfast standard, cornmeal mush fed millions of rural Americans every morning. Corn was cheap, sometimes free if you grew it yourself, and took it to the local mill for grinding. You'd bring water to a boil, slowly whisk in coarse ground cornmeal, stirring constantly to prevent lumps, then simmer for 15 to 20 minutes until thick and creamy. For breakfast, you'd serve it hot with butter melting on top, sorghum molasses or honey, and milk poured around the edges. It stuck to your ribs through a morning of hard farm labor. But here's where country ingenuity shined. Leftover mush would firm up when cold. The next morning, you'd slice that solidified mush into slabs, dredge them in flour, and fry them in bacon grease until crispy and golden. These fried mush cakes became a completely different food, crunchy outside, creamy inside.